Hello everyone. So alongside this post, I kind of want to do a video just kind of explaining or going more into depth about the various slides of a post and just giving some overall thoughts to the fight in general. Or I really wouldn't call it a fight, to be honest, since it's very, very one-sided in my opinion. So I always want to do a post like this because one thing I like about JJK in general is how they use some like real life backgrounds or monuments you would see in Japan, like from Shibuya and all that. And there was just some details that I feel like a lot of the sub missed about that fight, or there's like some general misconceptions for potential downplay or stuff along that lines. And I just feel like it was some of the claims they make were it might have been more meme related or just not researched as well as it should have been. So I just want to kind of go over that because I learned quite a bit of stuff regarding this and all that as I was doing the research. So let's just get on to it then. It is currently 2:45 in the morning because I just got back from work and there was some issues with my brother and all that. And there were also some just a lot of work stuff that was happening lately. So I really didn't have time to ma make a video or whatever. So I'm doing it now. Your monthly post. All right, so before you dive into the actual parts of the fight, it's really important to kind of get the background. And this part took a very long time to gather research on or just get the correct information. But the main thing is that I guess a lot of people were under the impression that that chapter 140 and 141 and even 139, they think that those parts all take place the night of the Shibuya incident, so like October 31st. But it actually doesn't happen until the fight itself really doesn't happen until like a week later, actually. And I feel like a lot of people miss that since like the anime kind of gave you the impression that things were going a lot quicker because like I in the final frame of the second season they had Yuji doing that hand clap over the bridge, which actually doesn't happen until a couple of days later, so they kind of did a skip and all that. Because the scene where he claps his hand is like a couple minutes later, that's when they first meet Naoya. And given that and basically what I'm thinking is that the fight itself doesn't take place until November 8th during the during the sunset hours. I know the slide says morning hours and all that, but after talking to some people or just reading the replies of some people who watched the movie, I have not. I live in the United States, so it doesn't come out until like I believe the 5th. So anyways, yeah, I believe it takes place on November 7th, November 8th during the sunset hours. And the reason I think about this is because, or the reason I think that is because Yuta and the rest of the gang, they really don't meet any, they really don't go to Yuki's place or they don't meet Tengen until November 9th. And I apologize in advance if I sound like super nervous and all that. I've never really considered doing a recording too for some of the guys in the sub and all that. And I really haven't done anything like this in a while, not since my college days. So my apologies in advance. Because because if it does take place by sunset, I guess it does kind of make sense since even when you are healed, even when Yuji was healed with RCT afterwards, he was probably just catching up on his sleep or his actual body was recovering at its own rate just outside of the RCT. after all that fighting and all that. And it really wouldn't make sense for them to kind of be hanging around just for like a couple days when they should then after until after Yuta fulfills his contract. Because once they do that and once that binding vow is broken, then they really don't have a reason not to go back to Jujutsu High. So yeah, I personally believe it takes place on the 8th of November. That's when the actual fight takes place. So that's like a solid week between the Shibuya incident and when we and after everything with Kenjaku and Mahito played down versus Yuji actually meeting Yuta and fighting him. So this actually gives Yuta a lot of time to heal and all that. And I guess some of the other things you need to consider regarding the date is I guess Naobito was still alive and not and Naoya and some of the others and the members barely don't leave until after Naobito dies and he names Megami as the head of the Zen clan, which kind of made Naoya want to kill Megami as a result of Naobito's decision. Gojo also tells Yuta that he would be needed if something bad were to happen to him, and the death sentence is it's only reinvoked after Gojo is sealed and all that, like they literally tell us in the manga, so it's not that big of a deal. So for all of this to happen, Yuta would need to fly back from Japan. Then he would have to meet with the higher ups and convince them to carry out the sentence in a binding bound. The funny thing about that is there's a decent chance Yuta might have been in Shibuya or somewhere killing off some cursed spirits in order to kind of prove that to the higher ups that yes, I am taking this seriously, or yes, you can trust me. And when I talk about Shibuya, I'm talking about that scene where you're like that girl's about to be killed by that cursed spirit and he jumps down and stabs the thing through the head. And so once he gets back to Jujutsu or to the higher up room, that's when they like put the binding vow on him and all that, or he volunteers for it. So then he would head back to find Yuji. And funny thing is, and this is kind of why I wanted to do more research on, or why it took so long, is I guess because Yuji and Choso, they travel a good amount of time from October 31st to November 8th and all that. And this was provided by Miho on Twitter. And basically, he provided the Google Street View of all these locations, and because the Yuda he appears on top of this hotel thing, and he like jumps down, and I'll obviously provide links to the actual locations and Street View and the description of the post because I feel like it would be really cool if you guys could take a look at that. Because I feel like again that's one of the better parts of JJK that you can kind of like map things and make like actual determinations of how far they traveled and all that. But I guess the only issue regarding like the actual Yuta fight location is and I'll go more into this when we get to the movie portion of the fight, but in the movie they kind of like they move to a different they moved to a different area than where the manga fight took place. Like they start off in the hotel area where they first meet each other, but Yuji and Yuta, they actually moved to a different location that I really haven't been able to find. And again, this could have just been the animators just coming up with a good background and all that, because like for the movie, they had like some older traditional Japanese houses with like those fancy roofs on them. So, and I really couldn't find that at the time. just going on Google Street View or that sort of thing. And Tokyo is a very big city in general, so that adds to the potential list of issues. And the other thing I kind of want to touch up on was it's kind of like a meme that goes around where they say like, "Oh, come on, Utah, this is 10% UG you're going up against." And I don't know if like some people actually take that seriously, like, "Oh, Yuji's only with 10% of his soul, and he's like super weakened and all that." And I really don't think this is the case because, well, first of all, the Yuji that fought Choso compared to the Yuji that's in this panel right here. Apparently, Choso thinks that Yuji's on a totally different level compared to when they first fought and all that. And that's really important because like Yuji was able to really hurt Choso with a couple blows when they first started fighting and all that, where Choso kind of makes a comment about it. Like, oh, hey, like I didn't expect to take that much damage from him. And the other thing is that Yuji states that Sukuna is clearly becoming stronger and that Megami is in danger and that his strength is growing. And even Yuji's surprised by how good his healing process or progress is because he's factoring in like the Black Flash he got hit by during the Mahito fight. And so that's really important because Mahito, he can do soul damage, and Yuji just happens to be sharing a body with the one sorcerer who can heal soul damage. It just takes a bit longer than using regular RCT or reverse curse technique. And it's funny because, and I can provide this panel later or whatever, but it was one of Restless Gambler's posts. He's the big Hikari fan and all that. And apparently there was like a translation he provided. And it's quite something because he was arguing that, and I might have to pause this up later because I'm going through my phone right now trying to look for it. Up there it is. But apparently, I guess some of the kanji that is used, one of them means like quote unquote orders of magnitude stronger. And you should probably take that interpretation with a grain of salt because like a magnitude, in order to be a magnitude stronger, you have to be 10 times stronger because that's what a whole magnitude is. And if that's the case, then the disaster curses may not be as strong as people make them out to be. Because like if Yuji gets 10 times stronger and like base Hikari is still able to give him trouble or still beat the brakes off of him, then I guess the funny thing is like even with like the 2.5 times Mahito durability amp he gets when using his true form, well 2.5 times is still less than 10 times. So Hikari, you could actually use this to try and argue that base Hikari stack gaps the disaster curses, which it would be something considering like some of the fights we see in the Coin games and all that, like that would just be a big boost in power that I really don't think is the case. But aside from that, the reason I bring this up is like I kind of like to bring up all the possible sorry, cat caught my tongue, the possibilities of the of various interpretations and all that what it could mean. All right, so what was this turning into a Yuji Glaze post nightlight? You might be asking that right now, and It might be. It might be because like even during the Choso fight, even against FFRS Choso, while being severely wounded from Supernova and conversions, he's still able to kind of fight him and all that. And it's just really impressive considering how much damage he would probably take from those attacks. And like we see, especially in the anime, like these blood attacks, they can do some serious damage to you. And like the funny thing is, and I'm going to get pushed back on this because, and this is just more in a joking matter, but I guess you can make the stupid argument that, well, since Kenjaku didn't want to be hit by these attacks, he might have less durability than this version of Yuji, which again, it's just a joke. It's just something funny that I thought I would bring up. Don't take that part seriously. So, yeah, moving on. The main thing that I kind of want to touch on is just how good of a fighter Yuji is. Because, like, first of all, he has the highest score among the JJK student cast when it comes to like the rankings they did. Like and the main thing is like the reflexes, like reaction time, motor skills, and all of this is without cursed energy. So this is where like Maki and Yuji, this is kind of their area. And we see that Yuji gets a 10 and Maki gets a 10. Yuta is at an 8. But in all honesty, I'm thinking that Yuji might unironically be a 15 if it were to continue to go higher. Because like the comparison I would make is how both Maki and Yuji dealt with the Miwa's simple domain, where Maki essentially, because Miwa was her plan was to go for an opening as soon as Maki came in, and like the auto strike would kick in and kind of clash with Maki's weapon. Instead of being able to, Maki just decided that it would be best for her to split her weapon in half, then throw the first half of it at Miwa in order to trigger her simple domain auto attack or the Bato sword drawing. But then you have Yuji just being able to run up on her. She activates her simple domain, and guess what Yuji does? He just jumps over the slash. That's kind of insane. If you think about it, like that's really insane. Like he just runs up on her and hops over like it's nothing. And also, it is stated somewhere, and again, I'll provide the link that Yuji did have some martial arts experience from his grandfather. Like, I'm pretty sure this is an offer statement. Like, Gege talked about it at some point. Like, it really wasn't formal, but like, the thing is, like, Yuji still did go to some karate tournaments as stated in chapter one, and he kind of dominated. And even though this is just probably due to the stack gap being so wide between like a normal human than Yuji, who has a special body designed by Kenjaku. So even though there's kind of like that gap there, he would probably still pick up a thing or two from just being there, seeing some of the other fighters fight and kind of like apply it to his own style of martial arts and all that. And this is really important because he uses a specific fighting style, which I feel like actually gives him an advantage against people like Yuta or like weapon users in general. And it's a very big advantage. So Yuji, he seems to favor the Taido martial arts style of combat. Essentially, this style was created by Saiken Shukumai in 1965, and basically it focuses on agility and dynamic body movements, and it also helps with evading attacks and being able to follow up on a counterattack. And again, the Majin kick is a part of the Taito martial arts style. And we know he's quite talented being able to flip around. We see it with Yuji and Mahito back in the versus Mahito part in season one in the early chapters, where Mahito's just swinging this chain and Yuji's able to jump in between the chains and like kind of avoid the attack, which is actually very impressive. And I was actually impressed by this a lot when I first saw him do it back in season one. And we kind of see him being able to use that martial arts style to be able to avoid Yuta's sword swing from when he speeds around him, going around the car as Yuji's jumping over, like he meets him and he's in perfect position to slash, but Yuji's able to avoid it. So basically, a fighting style like this would naturally complement someone like Yuji, who's kind of able to be very nimble and is very familiar with his body and all of that. And what I mean by that is like you kind of get like as you get like better at these various martial arts styles, you get more attuned with your body. And like if you like push yourself a certain distance, like you know exactly where you go. Like it's kind of like a control you have. And actually, kind of the other thing I wanted to touch up on just briefly was like when a lot of people do like hand-to-hand combat rankings and all that, it's kind of hard to kind of compare the or kind of to make a objective list on who's better at hand-to-hand combat because like someone like Kenjaku and Yuji and Gojo, they all use different fighting styles. So it's kind of like unfair in a sense to kind of rank like fighting styles and all that since they each have a different purpose. Like for example, people might say that Kenjaku's the best hand-to-hand combat fighter alongside Gojo. But the thing is that Kenjaku and this kind of extends to Geto as well. The way they like to fight is they mostly like to evade and like redirect attacks. Like they're really good at this. Like the Ghetto body's like really good at it, evading attacks like it's crazy. Like if you just read the fights or rewatch them, those guys like Kenjaku and Ghetto, they're really good at avoiding these attacks and they have awesome reaction speed. Like it's actually scary how fast the reaction speed of those guys are. But going back into it before I kind of diverge too far away, basically, like Yuji, he's able to like punch better and like kick around and like maneuver around. So it might be kind of unfair just to say because maybe he may not have as good as a reaction speed as someone like Kenjaku, like trying to say that Kenjaku is a better hand-to-hand fighter be just because of that. It just seems kind of unfair and this kind of extends to Gojo as well to an extent. Because again, they use like different fighting styles and all that. And again, the funny thing is that in the Q&A that those people like to cite, Yuji is not on that list. I believe it's only like Mai and Gege actually goes out of his way to avoid to not bring up Toji or Maki like he excluded those two in those two questions that were asked to him back in that Q&A. And again, Yuji is also not on this list or on the list he provided. So you can actually unironically try and argue Yuji over someone like Gojo in hand to hand since we're both not on that list. But again, that kind of goes back to my earlier point of trying to compare like hand to hand combat styles and try to really bring up which ones or try to say which one is actually quote unquote better. So kind of like again, like the other thing is that when Yuta is swinging a sword or all that, he would actually have a harder time with hitting someone like Yuji because with a sword, you kind of it's more than just having an extended arm with a sharp end on it. You actually need to engage your whole body, like you need to kind of put your hips into it and put your like shoulders into it because you see like his hips are engaged and he needs to kind of like extend his arm out. Because like in my opinion, and y I feel like a lot of you would agree with me that trying to like aim a sword strike and like kind of get your body in that position and target your opponent is way harder than simply punching them or something like that, or just throwing a punch. Because like the trade-offs obviously like a less lethal fist in exchange for requiring more time to swing the sword and all that and to actually aim it. And kind of like the two ways you can like avoid a sword strike is a technique called voiding, where you only move like the body part that the opponent is targeting. And this is kind of like more tricky than just outright moving backwards and messing up your targeting and just using your hook or just running away or moving back from the sword strike. Because you have to be a lot more precise with the part of the body that your opponent's targeting. And we kind of see this like in the trailer where you don't need to be faster than like an opponent's arm swing in order to avoid the hit. Like you don't need to do that. You just need to avoid where they're aiming and being able to kind of read their body language and all that just to see how their hips are engaged and the matter of which they're swinging the sword. And on Yuta's end, again, he uses a katana in combat. This is a longer sword. Again, it requires a full body movement. And again, you can't only use your arms like some of these shorter end swords or like a knife and all that. So going into that, because I want to dive more into like Yuta's swordsmanship and all that. But the first thing is we need to kind of address the dimensions of a sword or exactly how big the weapon is he's using. And this is where it kind of gets inconsistent because like again, according to like I believe this is like an official height chart and they list Yuta at like 5'9" or 5'10". So like around like 179 centimeters. And like the katana he uses in JJK0 in the main series, it kind of goes up to like his leg and all that. And like sometimes the sword is drawn as like being a super long sword, like in the season 3 trailer. But like as you watch the actual fight itself, it does seem that the animators did shrink it a little bit. Like especially when he's only using it with one hand, like they draw it to be shorter. And again, you see this in like a couple different anime. Like it's more of a drawing thing just to kind of I don't know, just to kind of make it look better or something like that. Cause like kind of like just going off like pictures of the sword, I would say that it's about 70-ish meters long. And like I know some people think that like the JJK0 sword in like the official photo they have of it, like they think it's like a shorter sword and all that. Which it is, but like it still covers the same amount of Yuta's body length and all that. So again, I really think it's just more of a drawing preference and all that. But let's just move away from the sword topic for my sanity because I could go on for a good while talking about it. And the sorry, my voice gets really hoarse. But one of the things I wanted to touch up on was the sword styles that Yuta uses, or the kind of the types of swings that he makes. So, because it was funny, because like I logged into like the JJK Zero Phantom Parade or the JJK Phantom Parade mobile game, and like they actually list Kesagiri as one of Yuta's moves, like in the game. Like I believe it's his skill one for the new Yuta that came out. So I was like, huh. I should kind of do more research into what exactly Kesaguri is and what Kirayagi is. So essentially, a Kesagiri is a cutting technique where you make a downward diagonal cut from the target's shoulders to the opposite hip. And this is a fatal strike. Actually, this is a fatal strike because I know some people are arguing, well, Yuta wasn't going for like these super fatal strikes. But in my opinion, and I'm going to get pushbacks from some of the more pro Yuta people, yes, he was. Kesagiri and Kuryagi, those are fatal strikes because there's a subclavian artery like in your shoulder area, and it like supplies blood to your head, neck, and arms. And if you like cut this, like if you cut this artery, you're going to lose consciousness very quickly. And this is actually an ideal way for you to kill Yuji since, again, this would cause him to rapidly lose blood going through the head, and this would obviously cause a loss of consciousness. Because your brain really can't function well if it doesn't have blood going through it. So, yeah, there's that. And as you make that, if you as you continue going into the shoulder area, into the chest, you have to look out for your lungs and all that. And then there's the main aortic artery, and that's like the main artery that basically that runs through your heart and all that. And if typically if that gets cut, it's fatal most of the time. Like even in like modern medicine, like if you mess that up, you're probably going to die. And he also goes for the some gut slashes in the movie as well. And in the manga, he goes for like kind of like this slash here. This is a Kiri Augie slash because like Yuji would be standing up straight here, and Yuta would just be kind of cutting up like you see like his sword go in that direction. Yuji would be standing there. Then the sword goes that kind of goes like that, and it is just as fatal because like you go through the gut spare, hit the aorta, and yeah, you're kind of cooked if that happens. And then we kind of see here like this is a Kesagiri cut. It just didn't go through all the way, or I guess it kind of missed his shoulders and messed up his gut a little bit because he still has like a stomach slash and all that, but like his guts were still intact as he states later on. So, and this is kind of like more showings from Yuji and his evasive maneuvers. Like he's, and this is where we kind of like see the Taido combat style like really kicking in, like being able to avoid these attacks and taking advantage of this combat style. And it really helps, like even if like the person you're fighting probably has slightly faster combat speed, just the martial arts style alone really helps. And the other thing is that note where Yuji's looking, and like Yuta calls him out for this, like where oh you're paying too much attention to my katana and where it's going, because this is kind of like the main issue that Yuji has during this fight is Yuta's katana is kind of the main thing going against him. So he really needs to pay attention to that and make sure it doesn't hit him. And I would argue that since he's paying more attention to the actual katana, that he would be able to avoid it better since that's his main line of sight. Like he's really paying attention to where that blade's going or how it's like coming at him. And like it's to the point where like Yuta's able to kick him and Yuji really wasn't expecting it and all that because he was too focused on the katana. Like I hate to be repeating myself, but this is kind of like a main thing a lot of people miss that since Yuji was paying attention more to the katana that he was able to avoid it better. Then we kind of like see a series of voids and all that where like again Yuji's kind of like moving out the way of where like Yuta's aiming and all that and really taking advantage of that Taito sword art style. And the other thing that Yuji is doing that's really helpful is he's moving back as these swings are happening. Because like if for Yuta, if the target's like moving back, then you kind of need to re-aim your sword again, since it won't be going where you're expecting it to go, since the target's actively moving backwards. So he would need to actively keep moving forward and readjusting his aim, which when you're going up against someone as nimble as Yuji is going to cause some trouble or cause you to potentially miss some swings, even if you are slightly faster than them in travel speed. Okay. Oh, my bad. And kind of like I guess each fighter's attitude going into the fight, because this is really important. So Yuji's kind of conflicted and fuck, I spelled that wrong. He's he's conflicted, obviously, about everything that happened in Shibuya and how he kind of felt responsible. But at the same time, he's kind of like he is driven to save more people than he killed. Like this is actually I believe this is kind of like a line he says, like, "Oh, I need to save all of these people or make up for the ones that I killed when Sukuna took over." And also during the fight, he thinks back to Nanami's words back before Mahito killed him. And a thing that people point out is when it's like when you're reading JJK, especially the early parts, uh black a black background with white text, apparently that indicates a curse. That indicates a curse that is being put on. Like we see it with Yuji's grandpa's words, those are a curse. Then we see it with we see it some other times, and then we also see it here with Nanami. And and again, there's some parts regarding this where it can be argued differently in movies since well, for one in the movie, Yuda's dialogue about Yuji holding back, I guess never happened. Like I'll have to verify it myself on December 5th and all that because I don't like going off hearsay. But yeah, apparently Yuda never said that line in the movie, but he does say it in the manga where like oh Yuji wasn't giving it his all, but you can kind of argue with like it's like regarding Yuji actually fighting back. Because in the panel we kind of see in the background when Yuda says that is kind of like you just like swinging his sword down and like Yuji and like he's kind of exposed and it's very possible that Yuji could try to throw in a quick jab while Yuji's sword is still down. But I really don't but if you go by the movie, I really don't think this part would kind of be harder to prove if we go by the movie and we'll go through it later on. But again, I feel like and in the next panel, there's like a translation I want to show you guys regarding the and Pepper actually showed me this translation when I was like going over the post in Discord and all that. But for Yuta, at least he I feel like he's also holding back in a way, and this is something that not a lot of people know, is that when Yuta kind of has that like straight face and all that, like that familiar, sad, creepy looking face he sometimes has when he fights. I believe that's he's actually somewhat holding back, like, and when I say holding back, like he's not throwing his punches or anything, or like he's not holding back his punches, but that like his mindset is really not in the fight, or he's not as engaged in the fight as we see him in some fights and all that. And again, regarding Rika, like he obviously didn't, like she obviously doesn't come out until later when she feels like things are getting a bit too heated. And if kind of like if you look back at some of the past panels, like with the ghetto fight, like he looks way more angrier in the ghetto fight and all that compared to like during the Yuji fight, because in the ghetto fight he's all like, I'm going to kill you and all that. And he says like ghetto, I have to kill you. And I guess in a way he's kind of like similar to Hikari in that way where like even though like they might be fighting until they kind of get into that quote unquote fever state or something like that, at least for Hikari, he's really not going all out. Like again, he's not really like holding his punches. He's just not in the right mindset in a way, or in the best mindset for fighting. And so here's the translation that I was talking about earlier. Again, Pepper, I believe they call him Peppermint, something like that on Reddit. But he kind of like showed me this translation, and this kind of like fits well into like the movie and all that, especially like given some of the changes we see in the movie and all that. And essentially, but in, essentially what's saying is that that Yuta was sorry, my voice is getting hoarse again, but he says that during the fight, your voltage or excitement really doesn't go up until the very end. And what I believe this could entail is that until Yuji grabs the knife and actively tries to fight back, like once he grabs that knife, that's when he's really kind of going more into it or not quote unquote holding back as much. Because he like imbues this knife, this hunter's knife with cursed energy. And there's some points in the fight where he actually like tries to go at him, like go and like towards the end, he actually runs towards Yuta before like Rika grabs him. And this is after like both of the bladed objects are broken. So this is just like a interpretation you can kind of take when or kind of use when going over the fight. Like it's really up to you, but I personally really don't find any issues with it, and I feel like it's pretty consistent when you talk about or when you kind of like watch the movie and all that and kind of like see the actual fight being animated. Here are some more panels. Again, there's Angry Yuta, then like kind of like for the Ryu fight, because this is a really good example. Like before the beam clash, like you just kind of like in that mellow or gloomy mindset. But as soon as like they have that as soon as like Ryu and Yuta start going at it a lot, it says like just this once fought fought he's probably never had a meaning in fighting Ishigori's glaze melted Yuta's heart. And I believe this is kind of like a mood amp and all that. Or this is kind of like when we see like Yuta put more passion in the fight and he starts to give it his all more like and all that. And again, he's like angry here, like he's fully intent on killing Geto here. Then with Sukuna, he kind of like has regrets regarding the Kenjaku situation and all that. And then he's all like, here, let me zoom in for you. I want you to defeat Kenjaku with my own hands. I created this situation. This is all my fault. And he uses his domain expansion. And obviously, yes, he better not be holding back and going up against the strongest sorcerer in history. This guy right here. And again, some conclusions, and we'll dive into the video right after, like, because I found some clips of a movie that I kind of want to go over. Is that I believe that Yuji is a lot healthier than people make him out to be, and that people hate on Yuta way too much regarding this fight without considering how troublesome someone like Yuji is in terms of fighting style. Again, in terms of if I had to give these guys a number, and not in terms of how much they were kind of going into the fight or how much they were giving in regards to the fight, like how much effort. And again, I'm just kind of pulling these numbers randomly, or I wouldn't say randomly, like it's kind of like a guesstimate because like I talked about it with some people on the special grade scalers Discord, invite only. Like, don't ask me how to get in. It's literally invite only. And they said like we would give him around like Yuji was probably going about it like at 85% of his full power. Like that's what they were saying and all that. Then I guess you can kind of like use the voltage part to like make various arguments or potentially get that percentage higher and all that. Like especially if you use the voltage interpretation that I showed you guys earlier. And Yuta like given his like attitude nerf or something like that. Maybe like a 90%, like because when we were going over the like kind of like Starlight stat scaling thing that he was trying to do before he went to engineering school, we did discuss this at some point, like the actual nerf Yuta has due to his attitude. So let's go back. Let's go over the anime portion of the fight. All right, let's do this. And all right, pause. Volume. I'm going to play this at like point 0.5-ish for you guys since again I'm kind of like I kind of want to show this fight in like slow motion just so you can keep track of like the sword strikes and all that. And this is from the JJK Executioner movie or Execution movie. So again, because like I actually ta asked about on the You Taliban Reddit where well, how did this happen? Like, how does this situation happen where they go from like talking on that bridge as soon as Yuta hops down to Yuta being on top of him, and like I guess what happened was like because I guess this is a cut from the first, like this is literally the first scene we get of the Colon Games episode one since we kind of put those episodes into the movie. And I guess this is literally how it started out, or the first frame they showed. And then it kind of goes like to a flashback earlier on. And I guess like Yuji was like riding on some sort of like cursed spirit and like Yuta